I absolutely inhaled Batman stuff as a kid, and most of the media I loved like that has recently been the subject of some reinterpretation. Most of that stuff has a pretty clear explanation. Either I think a main character is gender, or it's really ace. For a while, I just repeated reasons other people liked him, but upon learning that Kevin Conroy was gay, I have cracked the code. Anyway, for this video, I'm mostly working off of BTAS. There'll be some other references and whatever I throw in, but mostly BTAS because, you know, it slaps. Okay, that's enough of the introductory stuff. I like Batman because I see trans themes that hit hard for me. First up, and this is a bit of an obvious one, but Batman has two personas. He's Bruce Wayne by day, Batman by night, and it is a bit of a meme that Bruce Wayne is the mask that Batman wears, but I think how this personal dichotomy is shown is where the juice is for me. A lot of the time he spends at home is spent as Batman. He keeps the whole Batman thing under wraps, so when in Wayne Manor he's in civilian clothes, but he doesn't spend all that much time up there as far as we can tell. He sleeps, eats, and hosts parties, but that's pretty much it. Most of his time at home is spent working on cases in costume in the Batcave. The other members of the Bat family all know that he's Bruce Wayne, but he still wears his suit in front of him. Around those he trusts the most and those who know so little as to not be dangerous, he presents as Batman. Even if he can't fully be Batman in public, when it's safe, he will drop back to using his actual voice, as Batman and Bruce have different voices.
Appreciate the help, Doc. I'll return the favor next time you're raising funds. Bye-bye.
This computer checked that fiber against every animal species known to man.
The Batman voice gets used nearly always, only getting dropped when Bruce is in public. As soon as he's by himself or just around Alfred, the Bat voice comes back. It's worth noting too how straight Bruce's persona is. He is in general a very warm, jovial presence, and he uses that to surround himself with women. Even if he doesn't really have any interest in them, he uses the perception of his straightness as a shield to guard against any suspicions casted in his direction, and he gets called out on it too.
Really, Bruce, it's almost as if you picked them because you know there's no chance for a serious relationship.
In general, this is all cute little stuff in the background. It's more slow buildup of his character over time and less episodes focused on him directly. But sometimes we do get an episode fully focused on Batman's identity, and funnily enough, those are all the best ones. The one I'm going to talk about though is Perchance to Dream. In this episode, Batman wakes with a start after falling into a trap set by the Mad Hatter. He tries to tell Alfred about it, but Alfred doesn't understand. As Batman tries to start his day, less and less makes sense. The Batcave is missing, Alfred doesn't even know what that is, Bruce is engaged to Selina Kyle, and somehow Thomas and Martha are still alive. Something feels horribly off to Bruce, but he can't understand why, and the not understanding makes it so much worse. This discomfort is exacerbated by Batman flying past Bruce's work window, and he rushes out to the street to watch. Bursting at the seams, he gets off-the-record advice from a doctor outside her sphere of medical knowledge. With this knowledge, Bruce chooses to force everything down and to not think about it, and this repression lasts all of 15 seconds when he realizes it's a dream. He rushes to a point in Batman's patrol route. He doesn't know why he knows that, but he does, and confronts him. They fight, Batman gets unmasked as a figment of the Mad Hatter who explains the rules of the dream. Batman jumps off the tower to wake himself up, and he apprehends the physical Mad Hatter. There's a lot to like about this episode. It's shot and animated well, the acting is great. Kevin Conroy plays like 4 different people, but today is Trans Subtext Day. The premise of this episode is Batman being placed in a dream that he has to fight to wake up from, mechanically similar to something like The Matrix. This dream is specifically designed to keep him happy. He has everything he could possibly ever want. This does mostly work. Bats has a lot, and it should be everything he needs. He does love Selina, he does love his parents, so he should want his family to look like this, right? Except he doesn't, and he can't explain why. He can't say exactly what it is, but somehow he just knows that everything is connected to Batman. It's something about Batman's aura that feels right to him. I remember the first time I ever heard a trans person describe their own experience. It was a video by Pedantic Romantic. I don't remember which one, but in retrospect, it was probably about Wandering Son. I don't know how I would have gotten this far in the video given the kind of child I was, but I remember her telling an anecdote about how when she was a kid, she would pray to wake up as a girl, and that inspired a visceral reaction in me. I panicked, I immediately closed YouTube, and I started repeating, that's just crazy, that's a crazy thing to want, that's evil, I shouldn't listen to that. I was Mormon enough that telling myself something was evil was a very good way to justify ignoring it. But a little seed was planted. It had never occurred to me that praying to wake up as a girl was something that could be done. I wanted to do it, but I had already gotten so used to performing that I just kept performing for myself and for God. I couldn't say exactly what it was, but somehow I just knew that everything was connected to what Pedantic Romantic was saying. And then I ignored it. That's the same energy I see Bruce pursue Batman with. He's confused and he's scared and frantic, but he's still curious. Through all the hazy confusion that's been forced upon him, he still knows who he is, and with just the slightest bit of light can make his way through. This dream is designed to keep him happy, but its design has some pretty big faults. It's created between the Mad Hatter's dream machine and Batman's brain. The Mad Hatter can't see what's inside Batsy's head, so he has no way to know to implant Thomas, Martha, and Selina. He can't meddle directly, but he talks about the dream as if it were designed to be pure joy. He can't see that Bats wants to see his parents and so can't produce Thomas and Martha, but he can probably guess that Batman has a family and would like to be with them. He can't know about Batman and Catwoman's relationship, but he assumes Bats has a female partner and would like to marry her. One thing that's important to note is that the Mad Hatter invented his mind control and started crime because a girl didn't want to date him. He doesn't really strike me as the kind of guy to plan for any form of queerness, and so putting a queer person into that system obviously causes friction. With this dream machine, Mad Hatter accidentally created a system of compet, and just like real life compet, the dream machine is designed to keep people asleep, but Batman refuses to live a lie, no matter how attractive it may seem. And I love the way this turns out. No one's will should be strong enough to escape compet. It's built to isolate us, to strip us the vocabulary to describe and actualize ourselves, and to beat any growing seedlings back down into submission. To those perpetuating compet, it's unimaginable that we escape it, and yet escape it we do. Our fight has been going on forever, but we fight anyway. Because even if going back might seem easier and more comfortable, even if it's all we ever wanted, we will not live a lie. We demand authenticity and we will fight until the end to achieve that. Okay, this next part requires a little bit of squinting. Applying too literal of a trans reading is not a good idea. It would make the queerness I read in these characters born of pain and trauma and the reason they become violent and criminal. For a lot of these interactions, I don't necessarily get trans vibes. I just think that the issues they face and the way Batman helps them can be read trans-ily. Harvey Dent is running for re-election, and that stress is causing him to act out in anger and violence. This is because he felt angry once as a kid and repressed that so hard it became a separate person. He doesn't want the public to know and so goes to conversion therapy to fix it. The mob, being pressured by Dent, wants some blackmail on him, so they get the records from the conversion therapy office and threaten to out him. He knows this is going to happen, so he plans to propose publicly to keep the news stories focused on that while he confronts the mob. In that fight, his face is scarred and Two-Face is officially revealed to the world. I know I just said applying a literal trans filter onto the episode isn't a great idea, but even if this series is timeline nebulous, this happens roughly at the same time as the Lavender Scare would have, which is fun. I love when my cartoons do this. But with everything here, I can't help but feel for Dent. I'm from Mormonville, Utah. I know how scary the prospect of being outed is. I know the paranoia of trying to figure my issues out while knowing that asking for help isn't entirely safe. The panic and anxiety that Dent feels here is the same that I have felt all my life, and it is this pain that Batman sees and cares for. Bruce pays for facial surgeries and hospital stays. He visits Dent, and when Dent tries to get care, Bruce congratulates and encourages him. Batman plays chess with him in Arkham, and he always tries to de-escalate and welcome Dent back before engaging in a fight. Bats knows exactly what it's like to repress such a large part of yourself. He knows how disruptive that would be if it were leaked to the public, and so is the only one who can really offer that kind of support to Two-Face. But these two were childhood friends. Of course Bats wants to help. At least that's why Bruce cares about the situation, and Batman offers this kind of care to many other people. He is kinda Harley, and he's got his thing going on with the Joker, but most of his villains don't receive nearly this amount of emotional attention. They mostly just get stopped and put back into Arkham. except the queer ones. Baby Doll has a disorder that causes her body to not physically age while her brain does. She received immense acting success as a child, but as she grew, she wanted to perform other roles that better reflected how she saw herself, but no one else could see her that way, and so her career failed and she fell out of public life. We see this in the episode. It gets a pretty quick explanation. We don't get to see it happen live like we do with Dent, and Baby Doll isn't a reoccurring character, so we don't learn as much about her as someone like Catwoman. So we aren't too attached to her, we just don't know her that well. We learn bit by bit over the episode, and nothing too drastic changes until the end. Batman chases her through a children's playground, and she gets stuck in a dead end in a hall of mirrors. She gently walks forward, being careful of Batman, but quickly becoming distracted by all the different shapes her body could have been. She continues walking forward until she comes face to face with a tall mirror and sees herself. And instead of restraining her immediately, Batman simply takes the empty gun from her hands and comforts her. But Baby Doll is only in one episode, and Batman doesn't ever talk about her again, I don't think, at least not in BTAS. But it's quite revealing who Batman spends time with voluntarily and who he finds interesting. Like romantically. Catwoman is obviously trans. She's a hot environmental activist thief cat girl. Doesn't get much clearer than that. Her whole deal is basically cat stuff. She protects wildlife because she likes cats. She steals cat-themed things from rich people because she's a cat burglar. And she's hot because cat girls are. Her criminal activities are much less dangerous than the other Batman villains. The Joker will hold people hostage and threaten Gotham's breathable air. Scarecrow will flood the city with fear toxin. Catwoman will steal a necklace with a cat on it from a rich person. But for Catwoman, living this way isn't a choice. She doesn't steal for some other benefit like Penguin or Scarface, but she does it because not doing so would be inauthentic. Catwoman gets arrested pretty early on in the show, but since she helped Batman stop the terrorists, she gets put on parole and is prohibited from using her cat suit. But she gets home and immediately dons it once again. This time her cat was stolen, so her hand was a little bit forced, but when Scarface tempts her later, she takes very little convincing. I think the way she gets convinced is interesting. The museum is opening a new wing dedicated to conservation, and Selina gets invited. She wanders around alone, looking at all the dead animals kept in glass cages. She's having a hard time in this exhibit. These animals are all dead due to overhunting, but this exhibit is still dedicated to a prolific hunter. He became a conservationist later in life, but only because he knew he'd have nothing to shoot if he killed everything. All this performative activism wears on her, and she leaves upset. Scarface picks her up directly after this, and the offer of getting to steal from these jerks is just too tempting. She puts on her suit and can finally feel free once again. Scarface does betray her just as he intended to, but now that the cat's out of the bag, she is so much more free to act. So she gets revenge on him and steals her cat bag. Her motivation for all this is a desire to be free, and that's important when you put her against the rest of the rogues gallery. The Penguin penguins because he wants money to be reaccepted into high society. Scarecrow scarecrows because he wants to study fear and its effect on people. Catwoman catwomans because she's Catwoman. Presenting that way and acting that way doesn't have an end goal. She just wants to be free and to be herself. Bats offers a lot of chances to Selina that he wouldn't to others because he knows she doesn't really pose all that much harm, but he can also understand a lot of her pain. She expresses pain at feeling locked in a cage, and Batman has to pretend to be Bruce every day. She has quite a lot of wealth and comfort, and so should feel content with her life, but she doesn't. And we've already talked about her chance to dream. Even as Bruce, Bats helps her out quite a bit. He pays her bail and gets her connections that she wouldn't otherwise have been able to get. When she goes on conservationist rampages, he is right there to support her. He understands her better because they're both queer, and Catwoman is the one who could understand Batsy the best. When Batman disappears at the end of conversations, Catwoman is the only one who can see where he goes. Batman likes Talia as well, and she's trans because I'm trans and I said so. This is something I found interesting as a kid, but I didn't fully understand why until I had the words to understand myself and my relationship to queer history. Batman is never truly accepted by society, and especially not by the cops. A note on cops: obviously the cops and queer people do not exactly get along. If Batman were a real person, that would not be good. Billionaires spending their money not on actually helping the poor, instead using that power to inflict more harm and extract more wealth is not good. Cops who bend the rules to punish the bad guys are not good, and that's basically what Batman would be. I say would be because this is a cartoon, and in this cartoon, those kinds of people are the bad guys.
We could have made our own order! I was born to fight your brand of order.
Most people on the streets are fond of Batman. He makes them feel safe, and they know that despite his intimidating presence, they don't have anything to fear from him. However, nearly everyone with authority in Gotham has called for Batman's removal. Reporters and the media have repeatedly called for Batman to stand down. Detective Bullock has as well, and he only grudgingly works with him when it's necessary. The mayor of Gotham isn't the biggest fan of him either.
He and criminals like the Joker are cut from the same cloth.
This is why Batman stays closeted. This is why he can't use his resources how he'd like. This is why he has to fight from the shadows. But the fight needs to be fought, and so he does. Many of these people in power actually grow fonder of Batman over time. Detective Montoya wasn't super opposed to Batman, but after working with him, she certainly became much less so. Detective Bullock went from actively hostile to reluctant partner. DA Janet Van Dorn went from hating Batman to accepting that Gotham needs him, even if she wishes it didn't. These people are all reasonably high up in the Gotham authority structure, and many of them are willing to at least tolerate him, but despite that, they could never be his ally. They only tolerate him after he is proven directly useful to them.
You want to support law and order, you take off that mask and put on a uniform.
If you really want to achieve progress, stop doing drag queen story time, stop whining about the wizarding game, stop yelling at people about your pronouns, stop inconveniencing us. Sorry about that. Even with these people supportive of Batman, he can't be supported by their legal authority. They have to support him privately instead. Sure, it's better that he has friends on the inside, but they can't actually provide him the resources required, and he can't give them all of his information and resources either. Their failures to keep Gotham safe led to the death of his parents, and Batman has sworn that no other child will have to watch their family die like that again. So the police cannot fully be his allies. He does need them. Complying with the existing justice system is the best tool for certain jobs, but not all situations require the police. In Gotham Knights 32, Bruce funds local weather and traffic reports, runs Wayne Enterprises environmentally friendly, he makes sure his company hires felons, gives full scholarships, he provides safety gear to the Bloodhaven police force, convinces greedy businessmen to build libraries and community centers instead of coffee shops, and he visits the family of his injured friends. Yes, Gotham Knights is like the example of this stuff, but he does this all the time. Batman fights crime every day. He has guns fired at him constantly, but he's never really in that much danger. Sure, bad things could happen to him, but the Joker is never gonna kill him. Batman's villains aren't capable of that. They've tried, and they've never gotten that close.
I threw a rock at him. It was a big rock.
Sometimes they'll tire him out or get him on the ropes, but his life is never in that much danger. The only force capable of putting Batman in mortal danger is the police. At the slightest hint that Batman might have done wrong, without any real evidence, without any confirmation, the police throw everything they have at him to try and bring him down, and they nearly do. Unmasked, bleeding out and limping, he can only just barely escape with his life and secret intact. I suppose there are a few points where he's been beaten up this badly, or when he's nearly been blown up, but those aren't framed as dangerously as this was. This bit where the cops suddenly turn on Bats happens in the middle of Mask of the Phantasm, and it feels intense. It's a long scene, and we see that no matter how Batman fights, the cops are just too many and too well equipped for him to deal with them alone. His strategies get foiled just by sheer number. He's totally overwhelmed, and he does end up needing help from someone else. But at the end of Mask of the Phantasm, he's fighting the Joker inside an abandoned amusement park that's on fire and exploding all around him while the Joker cackles. This would, in actuality, probably be more dangerous than the early encounter with the cops, but it doesn't feel that way. Instead of feeling tense and panicked, it feels epic and climactic. I mean, it is the climax of the movie, but the cops are the only ones who don't treat the whole thing like a game. Look at Almost Got Him. Everyone has some sort of ploy to get Bats. They all had to do it their own way, but not the cops. They go straight for blood. So this is why Batman meant so much to me as I was growing up. When I felt torn between who I was and who I had to pretend to be, I could see someone else who pretended and excelled at doing good despite it. I saw him be kind and empathetic at all costs, and so I had hope that at least someone could understand me, even if society was built to alienate us. And being a superhero, I was socially allowed to like Batman, but throughout all that garbage I dealt with growing up how I did, I'm just glad that that little confused queer kid had something to help them through it. I got a call from my voiceover agent about a new series at WB, Batman, the animated series. I met the creative team of Bruce Timm, Andrea Romano, Eric Radomski, and others. They talked me through the character, explained how young Bruce Wayne had seen his parents murdered in front of him in Crime Alley, how he had formed dual personalities to deal with the agony of his childhood, a mask of confidence to the world, and a private one wrecked by conflict and wounds. Could I relate to that, they asked. Let me just try to get into the head of the man and see where I go. I imagined myself as young Bruce witnessing my parents attacked and crumbling in front of me. I saw them lying in their blood in the filth of Crime Alley. I saw my own father lying drunk in a pool of his dried blood. As Bruce, I held them, comforting them in my arms. As Kevin, I cradled my bloody father as he struggled for life. As Kevin, I held Chris, cradling him as he raved at the voices plaguing him. As Bruce, I felt disoriented and lost, not sure of my identity as my parents were cruelly yanked from me. I felt disoriented and lost as an actor whose identity was being yanked from him. Was I my public face or my private face? Had I made too many compromises? My heart pulsed. I felt my face flush, my breath grew deeper. I began to speak and a voice I didn't recognize came out. It was a throaty, husky, rumbling sound that shook my body. It seemed to roar from 30 years of frustration, confusion, denial, love, yearning. Yearning for what? An anchor, a harbor, a sense of safety, a sense of identity. Yes, I can relate. Yes, this is terrain I know well. I felt Batman rising from deep within.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And remember, Ashley, trans rights are human rights.